me at Cello, Cello. You had me at Cello. You had me at Cello. Oh, you had me at Cello. Playing the cello has so many pluses. It never grows old. Hello, everybody. 5 o'clock on a Friday. Time to temporarily put down what you were doing and watch Cello Chat. I would look forward to this time each week. And today is absolutely no exception, as I'm thrilled to have with me Carolyn Hagler. Carolyn, it's been a while. How are you doing?
It's been quite a while. I'm doing well. Thank you.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Well, would you tell the viewer your musical story? How'd you get to where you are?
Sure. Well, I started like a lot of people. My public school that I attended had the option to take band or orchestra when we got to the fourth grade. And having an older brother who played the cello, a person I adored, I realized, okay, if Mark's playing the cello, I, of course, have to play the cello. So when I got to the fourth grade, that's the instrument I chose, was the cello, and absolutely loved it, couldn't get enough of it. We had orchestra once a week, and by gosh, Thursday is the thing I looked forward to more than anything, was going to orchestra. So that got me through a couple of years, and then I got into youth symphony, did that for a number of years. And then by the time I was in high school, I started taking classes at the college part-time as well, and then ended up getting a bachelor's in music and performance, and then went to UT, studied with the famous Phyllis Young, and got my master's degree, and then taught in the UT String Project. And then over the years, I've done lots of things. I played in the New World Symphony. I'm in Austin Symphony. I've spent lots of years teaching, traveling, playing in a variety of different ensembles. But my love is the cello, and it's what I've done all these years. And I try to get away from it, but I just can't. I just keep coming back to it.
Well, you don't try.
Yeah, I don't try too hard, I guess, right?
Very nice, very nice. So, yes, not only a very versatile performer. I don't think there's a style that you've ever said no to, right?
There's some truth to that. Yes.
Okay. And then also extremely versatile teacher. You're certified to teach public school, and you teach privately all ages.
I do. I have.
Right. And I think one of the issues, regardless of the age we're teaching, I mean, sometimes for different reasons, but sometimes people are either always self-motivated to practice, which is great, of course, and other times maybe they don't practice as much as we think, hey, you'd advance a lot faster if you practice more, and no, they're cool with it, okay. But then there's other times that people know that if they could get themselves to practice more, they would like the resulting success. What are some of your go-tos for helping motivate people to get into that level of playing?
I think that is a great question. And I think it's the ever elusive question that everybody has. Everybody comes to this point when they know they have to practice, whether that means they're in middle school or high school or college, or they're a graduate program, or just learning symphonic material in their career. There comes this point when okay, I have to practice. I have to learn this material for whatever it is. And then the big question is how. And I think for so many years, so many of us were never really taught really how to practice. It was back in the day, in the 70s and the 80s, it was kind of more like, put your 3 hours in, put your 2 hours in, put your 4 hours in. But there wasn't a lot of talk about breaking it apart and chunking it and working through passages and really learning the technique on how do you practice. And I think once we learn how to practice, it's much more enjoyable. It's the end result is much more positive, and the music becomes better and better. So for me, I went through lots of years of what I and my students know that I refer to as junk practice. Now, junk practice is basically you're killing time. You're just killing time playing music, and you're not practicing. In fact, what we're doing is we're reinforcing bad habits, as you know, so often. And to be honest, I would have to say it really wasn't until about a decade ago that I really, really, really got it. It took that long in my career until I got it. And it was at that point when I saw a dramatic improvement in my playing. Even at my age, things really changed. And what I did was get out that metronome. And there was something about that metronome that made me very aware of time going by and placing music in the moment where it belonged, that kept me consistent, kept me going. Once I learned how to really listen to it and understand how to work with it, that was the starting piece. And then it sort of morphed into this Zen-like experience. And that's the best way I can describe it, because I got to where I had to really think about the senses and how you feel the music, how you feel the spatial awareness between your shifts, how you hear it, how you see it, and being much more critical. So for me, it was a many year process to learn how to practice. And when I get my students to understand this better, it's more about trying to get them into that sort of Zen-like thinking of bringing all your senses, or many of your senses, into the picture to get it. And then once you achieve some success that way, it's contagious. I mean, you want to do that every time. Yeah.
Excellent. You bring up the metronome. Sometimes, okay, there are some things that are more difficult than others. So, for example, there's the method of practicing where you transpose something through all 12 keys, make sure it's really solid. And that can be challenging.
Oh, yeah.
But playing with a metronome does not have to be that challenging. It's like, what's another one? Picking up a pencil and just mark the thing that they got right. Why aren't there markings in your music, kind of thing. Anyway, it's interesting sometimes how just even getting over the hump of trying out practicing with the metronome, so that sense of time is inescapable. Excuse me.
Yes. That really is true. It's the marking of time, because we always talk about our internal clocks. Well, they're not good. I mean, we think they're good, but they're not good. And when you try to put it together with the rest of the picture, it doesn't work. So we have to really teach ourselves that metronomic playing. That doesn't mean non-musically. That just means metronomically.
Where? Yeah, absolutely. Now let's see. I want to go next to the Cello Discovery website that you put together, because now I'm thinking about again, teaching all ages. And I think there are many people who do offer to teach all ages. And there are people who offer to teach online. Mm-hmm. But there's a degree to which just putting it out there, or, I don't know, everybody's varied in the amount that they have really kind of put thought into that or effort into it. But I will put you forward as somebody who clearly has put a lot of thought into the where, what, who, why you want to do this. And you've turned it into a website, Cello Discovery, that to me just is really clear and thorough. So would you talk about not only what that is, but also how you developed the idea and how it evolved?
Sure. Well, this Cello Discovery, in my opinion, it's nothing quite like it for a number of reasons. The whole idea was to try to find a way to teach the cello in these very small increments, in these very small steps, because having taught public school orchestra programs, and I had big programs when I taught, and I had as many as 40 kids in a classroom at a time, just me. And so I had to really scan the room often and figure out what's going wrong with posture and fixing, because as you know, setup is the key to whether you can play or not. And then many of us, when we teach private lessons, we teach the lesson and then we think, oh, if I could just record that lesson and they could just take it home and watch it again and they'll get it. There was so much about this, about breaking it down and then having a chance to really put it out there in a very detailed way that would help people learn to play the cello well. And so that's what Cello Discovery is. It's a series of very sequential lessons that are broken down into little steps. And then we have a series of exercises that I think is the most fun part of the website. And they are just, it's like a living method book. So if you open up the book and there's an exercise, well, you can take that one exercise and you can hear me playing it. You can watch a video of me playing it. You can slow that video down, zoom in on my fingers, zoom in on my bow. You can slow it down. You can speed it up. So it's a practice. It's a way to practice things where you don't have a teacher in front of you, but it's sort of the next best thing. And then I also wanted it to be a place where adults could come together and share their love of the instrument, their concerns, their frustrations, because they're all in this together, and they have similar feelings about going about this process later in life. And so they visit, they talk, they share their experiences and pieces they're working on. So that was the idea behind it. And then the next thought was, okay, I've never done this before. How am I really going to do it? How am I really going to break this apart? How am I going to do this? And I literally sat on it for years, and I would come up with outlines. I was like, that doesn't work. And, it went over and over and over until I finally got a sense of an outline that I wanted. Then I started, and I literally just kind of put it out there in its infancy, and it's constantly growing. Sometimes members will say, I wasn't exactly sure, where did my thumb, so I'll make another video and I'll fix that or add another video. So it's very clear how it all works. And it's been very rewarding for me to meet all these folks from all over the world. And it's been rewarding for them because they get together and we have many Zoom sessions and we talk through pedagogical questions and struggles. And, it's like bringing people together all over the world who share this goal of learning how to play the cello. And then once it was finished, it was a matter of how do I get people to know about it? And that was the next step, which I'm still working on.
That component can be very difficult too. And you used a word earlier before we got started, entrepreneurial, which is kind of funny. It's a hot word, it's a power word. But I think that, there's knowing what it means, and then there's knowing what it means to apply it. But I think back from my days in Austin a long time ago, and I remember with contracting string quartets for weddings, you are the opposite of passive. It's like it never, it never left your mind as to the terms like that we associate with entrepreneurial, just return on investment. Is this really the way that I get a hold of? Well, what is it they're looking for? And I don't know. Do you have training in marketing at all?
No, I just have a lot of drive. I just have a lot of drive and passionate about what I do. I guess that's most of it, is that anytime I take a project on like this, it's because I love it so much. I love it, and I just want to make the most of it. I think that's the best way. If you want to put something out there, you have to fully believe in it passionately. If it's not something you believe in, nobody else is going to believe in it either. And so that's why the things that I do take on to this level are things that I absolutely believe in and I'm passionate about, and I'm willing to spend all kinds of time dedicated to building it. And it's sort of a little bit how I'm wired, I guess, Yeah.
Excellent. Well, yeah. And you made that clear in your kind of the verbal bio as well, as far as the passion for just love the instrument. And I suppose that's the same thing that has led you to finding, avenues to perform in all different styles. Or did you always have that as a goal too, to play beyond the classical rep?
I had it as a goal. I just didn't always know how to go about it. And it was early in 2000s, like 2002. This was another one of my projects. Is there was a group that performed at this noonday concert that I went to. And it was fascinating. It was sort of this group that took this medieval Renaissance music and they just catapulted it into the 21st century. And I was like mind blown. It was like, this. And all I could think is, I want to get my hands on that group and make it better and make it. And so I did. That's what I did. It's like, I got a hold of the guy's like, hey, do you need a cellist in your group? And he's like, actually, not really. And I got him another year later. It's like, hey, do you need a cellist yet in your group? And like, no, we don't yet. And then he called me about a year after that and said, hey, we're looking for a cellist for our group. I'm like, I just gave birth to twins and I don't have time right now. So then about a year later, he contacted me again and said, hey, you want to play in the group? So I did. I started this group, and it was so fun because we would do these rehearsals and we were taking these skeletons of Renaissance music, adding all this crazy percussion and guitar and electric bass. And I got to play percussion. And then, we might have a beer at break, which you never do that in symphony rehearsal. And it just something was like so creative and, just so outside of what I was so used to doing. And we got to improvise and make these incredible music that ended up having us tour Spain a number of times. And a lot came of that. And it was so enjoyable that it gave me the bug that's like, music is not just about the black and white dots on the page. There's just so much more to it, so much more we can do with it. So yeah, I got the bug at that point.
Nice. Yeah. It's an excellent point though. I guess two thoughts come to mind. Is that I can think of some repertoire, just even off the top of my head, 16th century and 17th century in particular, that if, especially certain types where it's very rhythmic and maybe there's some reed instruments in there. There's something about the timbre of the reed instruments and be maybe kind of like the white noise of a drum. And if you just added the tiniest bit of distortion, it would really kind of have a rock and roll vibe.
Yeah.
And then when I think of the whole fiddling scene,
right?
There are people who don't go to classical concerts, but they'll go to a fiddling concert, or they'll go to a folk music concert. Mm-hmm. And when you take that music back far enough, you go, wait, these were the same stock melodies that were in cars or whatever. How do we merge
the two worlds? Right. I know. It's wonderful how much you can do with, the old folk melodies and anything, and bring them forward with all the wonderful percussion and synthesizers and everything else that we have available to us now. There's a lot of beautiful music we can create and improvise with, and it's endless. It's endless. And the cello, of course, is the greatest instrument. So of course you can sing everything.
Amen. Hey, so another thought back to the Cello Discovery website. Some of the things that you have there, I'm thinking about just the tips that go everywhere from, placement of the bow on the string to, does repetition really lead to solutions? I'm just kind of curious, what percentage-ish do you think are the result of your having watched people play and think, oh, I need to do a video on that? And how many of them are the results of you teach something or other and following up on things that they asked you for additional clarity on or your thoughts on during lessons?
Wow, that's a great question. I never really thought about that, but I would say it's probably about half and half. I mean, so much of what we learn, as you know, in undergraduate and graduate school is we're taught so much about tone production and what exactly is happening in pronation of hand and what happens with the hair touching the string. How are we making this sound? So some of this is learned, but it's true. A lot of it's more things that I've seen and watched and questions that people have given me. And I will say a lot of what I have to deal with is folks that played violin when they were younger and they're switching to the cello. And it's almost as though so much of it's backwards from the way that we do it, and having to watch them and try to figure out what are they doing here? And having to figure out how to retrain their bodies to do things a little bit backwards from what they're used to. So I would say it's half and half. I never really thought about it in those terms, but you have to learn by doing, and you have to make mistakes when you teach sometimes to realize that you didn't teach that right, and you have to go back and find another way to present that material that does make sense, so that it works for that individual as well. So I would say, yeah, somewhere around half and half between what I've learned and what I've been taught myself. Yeah.
All right. Excellent. Well, now it's probably I would imagine it would be a pretty large list, but for 2023, what are some of the things you have coming down the pipe, both performances and projects?
It's funny, and you're not the first person to ask me that. And normally I'm full of a million things, but right now I'm so focused. I have so many things that I want to do with Cello Discovery, and so many things I want to teach, and so many different styles I want to teach of music, and so many different directions I want to take that site, that I'm so focused on that right now. But I'm also doing an in-person workshop with my Cello Discovery. So in Northern California, we're going to do a 4-day workshop.
Nice.
So we've got a lot of folks already signed up for it, and we're going to just do a very intensive study on technique and cello choir, and the social part of it as well. So that's going to be a really fun thing to do this summer, and I'll get to meet some of these folks on my website in person, and other folks as well. And then I still play in the Austin Symphony, and I do a lot with that. I'm not teaching as much in person anymore. I'm more selective these days, I guess, about private lessons. And then I have lots of gardening projects I have to do too. So, so that's just really what I have going on. It's not like any big things right now. It's more just I got the workshop this summer, and then really just continuing to evolve the big picture of Cello Discovery. Yeah.
It is very time consuming. Getting the idea and then formulating how you want it to go, and then recording it, and then editing it if it needs it, and upload the thing, and then put it in the context of everything else. And it's
a lot.
It is. It's a good thing that we are fueled by our passion and love for what we do.
I agree. Because musicians, a lot of times we work independently, and we have to make it all work. We have to do a lot of this stuff ourselves. So fortunately, I have a wonderful accompanist who has recorded all of the music for me. And she sends me this music in MIDI files. And I get to, if you know about MIDI files, you can manipulate MIDI files and put different sounds on MIDI files. So not the traditional literature, but some of the exercises, I could do some kind of fun accompaniments with the MIDI, and add percussion to it and all that. So I have a wonderful accompanist that helps me, and it keeps me thinking more creatively too, because I have somebody who can record all this stuff for me that I come up with. But yeah, it keeps me inspired. I have other people that help me stay inspired in what I do as well. But yeah.
Well, and I imagine your own technology chops are good, and always kind of have to keep staying up to date.
Yeah, I had to learn so much. I didn't even, Beth Blackerby's a dear friend of mine. She runs Violin Lab, and she was the one that sort of helped me get going a little bit. And we used to have a joke. We still have the joke where she goes, okay, now this is a mouse. And that's our standard, like, okay, I'll teach you this, but this is a mouse means, okay, we're going to go back to basics here. So yeah, I had to learn a lot. I didn't know how to use Final Cut. I use GarageBand because I just find it very easy to use. I purchased microphones, learned about how to mic, edit MIDI files, MuseScore, all that stuff. There was a lot to learn. My head just hurt in the first days because I thought, at my age, having to learn all this, but it was very good for me. It was very good for me to learn all this, and it excited me and made my brain just on fire, realizing how much I can do learning this. But yes, have to keep those technology chops one step ahead, because it's always changing. There's always new stuff and bigger and better things we can do with technology too.
No, for sure. I think there's a degree to which when we cultivate the good practice habits like you were talking about, we can apply those ways of thinking to getting over the learning curve with a new technology thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one of the exciting things with this sophomore program that I use is that when the students have a little section that they're having trouble with, I just wish this was around when we were going through school, You could zone in on these 2 measures.
Yeah.
You can slow it way down. It loops it for you. You can watch my hands slow. I mean, it's just like you can take it all in at once. I mean, it's just such a great tool that we didn't have back then, but it makes you slow down because it's sticking with this timing. I mean, I think people can progress so much faster now because of the technology that we have out there. And it's more fun to learn that way too, I think.
Yeah, they can go at their own pace, go back to something that they need to review. All right. Well, everybody is going to go check it out.
Yeah. It's a good place. You like it.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, Carolyn. It's been great.
It's great to see you. You look exactly the same after all years. It's funny. Yeah.
All right. Well, take care and thanks again.
You too.
And everybody out there, happy practicing all week, and we'll see you this time next Friday.